Once, they were Hollywood's golden children, bright-eyed prodigies who lit up the screen with radiant smiles, million-dollar deals, and a future that seemed limitless. Their talent captivated audiences, and their fame seemed unbreakable. But the glittering spotlight didn't last. As they grew older, life took a darker turn. Many of these once celebrated stars found themselves entangled in a web of crime, drug abuse, theft, violent altercations, even murder. The red carpets they once graced are now distant memories, replaced by prison bars and shattered dreams. How did they fall so far? Which of them faced the most devastating downfall? And what drove these childhood prodigies to lose everything they once held dear? Join me as we uncover the heartbreaking stories of 15 black child stars who faced legal troubles, tracing the paths that led them from fame to infamy. Gary Coleman, from beloved child star to a life shattered by scandal. Once upon a time, Gary Coleman was one of America's most cherished child stars. His cherubic cheeks and infectious grin made him an instant favorite on the hit TV show Diff'rent Strokes, where his quick wit and lovable personality captivated millions. But behind the scenes, Coleman's life was far from the fairy tale it appeared to be. The glow of his childhood fame faded all too soon, and by 2004, Gary Coleman was back in the headlines, but not for a triumphant return to the spotlight. Instead, the former star was embroiled in scandal after being arrested at a shopping mall in Utah. Witnesses described a shocking scene. Coleman, now 36, locked in a furious argument with a security guard. Tempers flared, words were exchanged, and in a sudden burst of anger, Coleman struck the guard. The altercation played out in front of a stunned crowd, shattering the image of the once adorable TV icon. When security intervened, Coleman resisted, desperate to break free. In mere moments, the child star who had once warmed America's heart was now being handcuffed, his fall from grace playing out in real time under the judgmental gaze of onlookers. News of his arrest spread like wildfire, and just like that, the world saw a once beloved celebrity reduced to a troubled figure grappling with his own demons. But the worst was yet to come. By 2010, Coleman faced the law once again, this time for violating probation. His history of violence had caught up with him, and the courts showed little mercy. A 30-day jail sentence marked the final chapter of his dwindling fame, a sobering reality for a man who had once been the face of a hit sitcom. Yet Coleman's story of tragedy wasn't just about run-ins with the law. Few knew that after Diff'rent Strokes, his life spiraled into chaos. His adoptive parents, once trusted guardians, were accused of embezzling the fortune he had earned as a child star. Left penniless, Coleman battled ongoing health issues, crushing debt, and a deep sense of betrayal. The golden boy of Hollywood had been dealt blow after blow, leaving him a shadow of his former self, bitter, angry, and struggling to survive. Sadly, his battle ended abruptly in May 2010 when a severe fall claimed his life. There was no triumphant comeback, no final act of redemption, just a heartbreaking end to a once bright star who had inspired an entire generation. Gary Coleman's story serves as a haunting reminder of how fleeting fame can be, and how the pressure of stardom can break even the most beloved souls. Todd Bridges, from child star to redemption. Todd Bridges was once one of Hollywood's brightest young stars, lighting up screens in the 80s as Willis Jackson on Diff'rent Strokes. With his infectious smile and lovable persona, he became an icon for millions. But when the cameras stopped rolling and the applause faded, Todd's life took a harrowing turn. Beneath the wholesome image was a young man grappling with inner demons, slipping into a world of drugs, violence, and crime. The innocent child star found himself on the brink of destruction, his life spiraling out of control. In 1989, the world was shocked when news broke of Todd's arrest for his alleged involvement in an attempted murder in Los Angeles. According to police reports, Todd had fired multiple shots at Kenneth "Tex" Clay, a notorious drug dealer, leaving bullet casings scattered and the sidewalk stained with blood. Miraculously, Clay survived, but Todd was quickly arrested and charged with first-degree attempted murder and illegal weapons possession. The public couldn't believe it. How could the beloved Willis Jackson become a gunman on the streets? The media swarmed the courtroom, eager to tear down the fallen idol. Todd claimed he was framed, a victim of his addiction and the toxic company he kept. His cries for justice seemed to fall on deaf ears, until Johnny Cochran, the brilliant defense lawyer who would later represent O.J. Simpson, took his case. Cochran's masterful legal strategy shifted the narrative, and Todd was acquitted of the murder charge. He walked out of court a free man, though public opinion remained divided. But freedom didn't mean salvation. Addiction still gripped Todd's soul, and his downward spiral continued. In 1993, he was arrested again, this time caught at a drug trafficking hotspot in Los Angeles, with heroin, cocaine, and a loaded gun in his possession. It seemed like the end of the line, a lifetime behind bars. But instead of a prison sentence, fate handed him a lifeline, a chance at rehabilitation. In rehab, Todd faced the brutal truth. If he didn't change, he would die. Determined to rewrite his story, he fought his addiction head-on, cutting ties with those who dragged him down and embracing a life of sobriety. He emerged from the darkness a transformed man, dedicating his life to speaking out against drug abuse and sharing his story to inspire others. Todd Bridges' journey from child star to accused criminal and finally to a beacon of hope is nothing short of remarkable. He didn't just survive Hollywood's dark side, he conquered it, proving that redemption is possible even when the odds seem insurmountable. Orlando Brown, from Disney star to dark descent. Once a beloved face on Disney Channel, Orlando Brown captivated audiences as Eddie Thomas on That's So Raven, a household name adored by millions. But when the curtain fell, the spotlight faded, and his life unraveled in ways no one could have imagined. Drugs. Violence. These words now define him more than any role ever did. On June 29, 2018, Las Vegas police received a call about a theft at a restaurant. When they arrived, they found a disoriented man hiding in the bathroom, none other than Orlando Brown. Stumbling and mumbling incoherently, he was a shadow of his former self. A search revealed methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. For Brown, this was just another brush with the law, having been previously arrested for driving under the influence, resisting arrest, and violating probation. Yet this time, it felt different, darker. Brown was taken straight to jail, facing charges of theft, drug possession, and probation violation. Social media lit up with his mugshot, gaunt, wide-eyed, and unrecognizable. Fans were stunned. How had the bright, energetic Disney star fallen so far? But the spiral didn't stop there. Fast forward to December 2022, and Brown found himself in trouble once more, this time, not for drugs or theft, but for domestic violence and death threats. In Ohio, a relative who had taken him in, hoping to help him find stability, became his target. In a violent outburst, Brown reportedly threatened to kill the man with a knife and a hammer, his eyes burning with unhinged rage. When the police arrived, they found a chilling scene. Brown, wild and out of control, was subdued on the spot. The victim's account painted a haunting picture of a man lost to his own demons, consumed by anger and instability. The trial that followed further cemented Brown's tragic downfall. His journey from Disney darling to criminal outcast wasn't just his alone. It was a reflection of a cruel Hollywood reality where fame's fleeting glow can leave behind shattered lives. Orlando Brown once had it all: fame, fortune, and adoration. Now, he's left with a grim legacy, a cautionary tale of how bright stars can burn out, leaving only shadows behind. Marcus Terrell Pulk, from beloved child star to troubled adult. Once the charming, mischievous little brother who stole hearts on the hit sitcom Moesha, Marcus T. Pulk seemed destined for greatness in the 1990s. As Miles Mitchell, he brought humor and warmth to the screen, becoming one of Hollywood's most promising young talents. But when the camera stopped rolling, his life took a dark and unexpected turn. When Moesha ended, so did the spotlight, and Marcus's career stalled. Instead of blossoming into a seasoned actor, he fell into a pattern of reckless behavior and legal trouble. The world was stunned in August 2013 when news broke that Marcus had been arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. What started as a minor argument at a Los Angeles nightclub spiraled into a nightmare. Back at home, in a fit of uncontrollable rage, Marcus lashed out violently, punching her in the face and kicking her in the stomach repeatedly. Battered and terrified, she somehow found the strength to get to a hospital, where she reported the attack to authorities. Just hours later, police arrived at Marcus's door, arresting him on domestic violence charges. The once beloved child star now wore the label of an abuser, his reputation shattered. Despite the severity of the incident, Marcus was released on bail, but the damage to his public image was irreversible. Fans could no longer see the lovable boy from TV, only a troubled man who had lost his way. You'd think such a harrowing wake-up call would set him straight, but just 2 years later, Marcus found himself in deeper trouble. In 2015, he was arrested again, this time for driving under the influence. Arizona Highway Patrol spotted his car swerving erratically down the interstate. When officers pulled him over, they found him disoriented, stumbling, and slurring his words. A breathalyzer revealed his blood alcohol level was dangerously high, and his behavior suggested he was under the influence of drugs as well. In an instant, his mugshot, bloodshot eyes, and a haggard face spread across social media, cementing his fall from grace. Once a rising star with limitless potential, Marcus Terrell Pulk had become another cautionary tale of fame lost to poor choices. Now, as he struggles to revive his career, he is met with skepticism and judgment. The entertainment world that once embraced him has moved on, leaving Marcus to grapple with the bitter reality that talent alone isn't enough to secure a place in Hollywood. Fame is fragile, and one reckless moment can erase years of hard work. Marcus's story serves as a somber reminder that without discipline and accountability, even the brightest stars can fade into obscurity. Wesley Snipes, the fall of a nighttime warrior. Once hailed as Hollywood's indomitable action hero, Wesley Snipes carved his name into cinematic history with his iconic portrayal of Blade. A martial arts maestro with undeniable charisma, he dominated the 90s action scene, transcending racial barriers and becoming a role model for black talent breaking through in Tinseltown. But behind the fame and fortune, darkness was creeping in, one that not even the fearless Blade could fend off. At the height of his career, Snipes made a reckless mistake that would shatter his legacy. Between 1994 and 2000, he raked in tens of millions of dollars, but didn't pay a single cent in taxes. Convinced he could outsmart the system, Snipes resorted to every trick in the book, funneling money offshore, misrepresenting his income, and even claiming he wasn't a U.S. citizen. But no amount of cunning could outmaneuver the relentless grip of the IRS. When the government finally caught up, his unpaid tax bill had ballooned to over $15 million, including penalties and interest. The magnitude of his fraud made him a prime target for federal prosecutors. Determined to make an example out of him, the government unleashed one of the largest tax evasion probes in entertainment history. In 2006, Wesley Snipes was indicted on 8 counts related to tax evasion and financial fraud. In desperation, he hired elite attorneys, pleaded his case, and even offered a hefty sum to reduce his punishment. But the court wasn't swayed. In 2008, Snipes was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, a staggering blow, considering other celebrities had dodged taxes with far lighter consequences. Hollywood watched in shock as the once untouchable action star became inmate number 43, 355-018. On December 9, 2010, Wesley Snipes walked into McKean Federal Prison in Pennsylvania, leaving behind the glittering lights of Hollywood. Inside, life was starkly different. Manual labor replaced million-dollar deals. Yet, the disciplined warrior spirit in him never faltered. He stayed out of trouble, practiced his martial arts, and even shared his skills with fellow inmates. But no matter how resilient he remained, the bitter truth was undeniable. His career, his reputation, everything had crumbled. After serving 28 months, Snipes was released on April 2, 2013. But the world had moved on. Action roles now belonged to new titans: Dwayne, The Rock, Johnson, Vin Diesel, and Jason Statham. He tried to claw back into the spotlight with films like The Expendables 3, 2014, and Coming to America, 2021, but the damage was done. Hollywood's memory is long, and its forgiveness rare. Snipes learned the hard way that one fatal misstep could turn a nighttime warrior into a fallen star. Chris Brown, from R&B royalty to a dark descent. Chris Brown, the R&B prodigy, was once hailed as the golden boy of music. At just 16, he burst onto the scene with a Billboard-topping hit, drawing comparisons to the legendary Michael Jackson. The world couldn't get enough of his smooth vocals, electrifying dance moves, and undeniable charisma. It seemed like nothing could dim the rising star of the R&B prince. But fate had other plans. Just a few years later, the image of the charming, talented young artist shattered, replaced by a troubled man mired in controversy, violence, and eventually incarceration. The descent began on one horrific night in 2009, a night that would forever change his life and his legacy. The night that changed everything. February 8, 2009. A Lamborghini sped through the dimly lit streets of Los Angeles. Behind the wheel, Chris Brown's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. In the passenger seat sat Rihanna, his famous girlfriend, sobbing uncontrollably. Heated words flew back and forth, escalating faster than either of them could control. Suddenly, it happened. Chris's rage erupted. His fist connected with Rihanna's face, a violent blow that sent shockwaves through the car. Another punch followed. He grabbed her throat, threatening her, eyes blazing with fury. Rihanna tried to break free, clawing at the door, desperate to escape. But it was too late. When the storm settled, Rihanna's face was bruised and swollen, blood streaked her clothes, and fear paralyzed her. An emergency call brought the police. Chris Brown was taken into custody, but the damage had already been done. The world was horrified as photos of Rihanna's battered face flooded the media. Fans who once adored Chris turned their backs. Major brands severed ties. The Grammys removed him from the lineup. The once beloved R&B prince had become a pariah overnight. A fall from grace. The court sentenced Chris to 5 years of probation and 180 days of community service, offering him a chance at redemption. But instead of seizing it, he spiraled deeper. Fights erupted, one with rapper Drake in a nightclub, another with a fan over a photo. Repeated probation violations showed the world a man unable to break free from his demons. By 2013, the court's leniency wore thin. Chris Brown was ordered to serve time. In March 2014, he found himself behind bars in a Los Angeles jail. After 108 days, he emerged a changed man, thinner, hollow-eyed, and seemingly broken. He promised a fresh start, but the shadows of his past refused to fade. Legal battles, public scrutiny, and lingering controversy continued to hound him. Though he continued to release hits, the brightness of his early career never fully returned. Chris Brown's story is one of extraordinary talent, tarnished by poor choices and violent impulses. His journey from musical prodigy to disgraced star serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly a life of promise can descend into darkness. Michael Jace, from rising star to tragic killer, a family torn apart. He was once a familiar face on television, recognized for his role as police officer Julian Lowe on the hit crime series The Shield. Though not a household name, Michael Jace built a respectable career in Hollywood, appearing in major films like Forrest Gump and the 2001 remake of Planet of the Apes. Yet behind the camera, Jace's life was unraveling in ways no one could have imagined. Years of job stress, marital tension, and unspoken emotions pushed Jace to a breaking point. On the night of May 19, 2014, his South Los Angeles home became the setting for an unimaginable tragedy. April Jace, his wife, had just returned home with their 2 young sons after a routine practice. The house seemed calm, but darkness loomed. As April stepped through the door, unaware of the storm brewing, she found herself face to face with her husband, weighed down by overwhelming thoughts and unresolved anger. In an instant, the tension erupted. A gunshot shattered the night. A single bullet struck April's leg. Then 2 more shots followed, each more deafening than the last. As the smoke cleared, April lay lifeless on the floor, while their children, paralyzed with fear, tried to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before their eyes. In the eerie stillness that followed, Jace called the police, his voice thick with regret and confusion. When officers arrived, they found him motionless, resigned to his fate, offering no resistance. The tragedy shocked the nation, and soon, the media descended on the story of the actor turned killer. In court, Jace confessed that he hadn't intended to kill his wife, but his actions in that volatile moment could never be undone. In 2016, Michael Jace was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. The former actor now lives in obscurity behind bars, far from the limelight. Meanwhile, the true victims of that night, his two sons, are left to grow up with a fractured past, their mother gone forever and their father locked away. It's a story of lost potential and irreversible choices, of how a man once in the public eye fell into darkness, leaving behind a shattered family and a legacy tainted by tragedy. Lil Wayne, from rap prodigy to prison survivor. Lil Wayne is more than just a talented rapper, he's a cultural phenomenon. Hailing from the vibrant streets of New Orleans, he burst onto the music scene at just 12 years old, signing with Cash Money Records and quickly becoming a child star. By 17, he had already made his mark, featuring on the platinum-certified album The Block Is Hot. As his career soared, chart-topping hits like Lollipop, A Milli, and 6 Foot 7 Foot cemented his dominance in the hip-hop world. But just when Lil Wayne seemed unstoppable, his world came crashing down, not because of a scandalous rap feud or a music controversy, but because of a harsh prison sentence. On July 22, 2007, fresh off an electrifying performance in New York, Wayne's tour bus was pulled over by police. As the doors opened, the unmistakable scent of marijuana spilled out. A search revealed an unregistered .40 caliber pistol in his bag, an offense that, under New York's unforgiving gun laws, could mean up to 15 years behind bars. In an instant, Lil Wayne transformed from rap royalty to a handcuffed suspect. Months of grueling legal battles followed, with his defense team fighting to lessen the charges. Yet, New York's zero-tolerance stance on illegal firearms left little room for leniency. In October 2009, Lil Wayne accepted a plea deal, 1 year in prison. On March 9, 2010, he began his sentence at Rikers Island, one of New York's toughest jails, infamous for housing the most dangerous criminals. Despite his celebrity status, there were no special privileges. At one point, he was caught with an illegal MP3 player and sentenced to 23-hour-day solitary confinement. But Wayne didn't let prison break him. Instead, he turned isolation into inspiration. Armed with nothing but a pen and paper, he wrote prolifically, recording his raw emotions and experiences in what would later become Gone Till November, a candid and powerful memoir of his time behind bars. After serving 8 months for good behavior, Lil Wayne was released on November 4, 2010. As he stepped out of Rikers, hundreds of fans greeted him like a hero returning from battle. Wasting no time, Wayne headed straight to the studio, channeling his hardship into the Carter 4, an album that shattered records and reasserted his place atop the rap game. Rikers didn't break Lil Wayne. It forged him into something stronger. Despite the mistakes and the struggles, he proved one undeniable truth. No cage could contain his indomitable spirit. Lil Kim, the hip-hop queen who paid the price for loyalty. Lil Kim isn't just a rapper, she's a cultural force. Bursting onto the scene as a teen with Junior Mafia, she quickly made waves in the music world with her groundbreaking 1996 album Hardcore. Bold, unapologetically sexy, and lyrically fierce, Lil Kim challenged norms and dominated the charts, cementing her place as hip-hop royalty. But even at the height of her fame, one bad decision threatened to tear it all down. On February 25, 2001, chaos erupted outside Hot 97's Manhattan headquarters. A brutal shootout between two rival crews, one linked to Junior Mafia and the other to rappers Capone and Noriega. Over 20 shots were fired, leaving 2 people gravely injured. As the dust settled, police moved in, and Lil Kim's name was quick to surface. 2 years later, in a courtroom packed with press, Lil Kim made a choice that would haunt her. Rather than admit the truth, she lied, denying any knowledge of the shooters and insisting that her bodyguard wasn't present. The problem? Surveillance footage told a different story. The cameras clearly captured her leaving the station with 2 of the key gunmen, and witnesses backed up the damning evidence. The verdict was harsh, 2 counts of perjury and 1 count of obstruction of justice. Though she faced up to 20 years behind bars, Lil Kim's plea for leniency and expression of remorse earned her a lighter sentence, 1 year and a day. On July 6, 2005, she entered the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia, leaving behind her glamorous life for a cell and a harsh reality. But even behind bars, Lil Kim's spirit remained unbroken. She wrote music, read voraciously, and stayed resilient. Her good behavior earned her an early release after 10 months, and on September 2, 2006, she walked out stronger and wiser. Back in the spotlight, she wasted no time, reclaiming her throne with new music, TV appearances, and a renewed sense of purpose. One line nearly cost her everything, but Lil Kim's comeback proved that even a queen can stumble and still rise again. Bobby Brown, from musical prodigy to troubled star behind bars. Once the golden boy of R&B, Bobby Brown captivated the world with his electrifying performances as a member of New Edition before breaking out on his own. The 1980s were his domain, with hits like Don't Be Cruel cementing his status as a music icon. Yet behind the glittering success, Bobby's personal life spiraled into chaos, a story marked by addiction, violence, and a series of run-ins with the law. Rather than solidifying his place as a legendary figure, Bobby's name became synonymous with controversy. Among his many legal troubles, 2 incidents stand out as dark milestones on his troubled path. The first came in December 2003 when Atlanta police responded to a frantic call from Whitney Houston's home. They found Whitney bruised and bleeding, her lip split and cheek swollen. The only other person present was Bobby Brown. Arrested on the spot and charged with domestic violence, Bobby faced the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Whitney later dropped the complaint, downplaying it as a minor argument. Yet the visible wounds told a different story. Bobby still found himself in court, sentenced to 8 days in jail, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory anger management. Years of battling addiction and reckless behavior took their toll. In October 2012, after another bout with alcohol, Bobby was pulled over in Los Angeles for erratic driving. A breathalyzer confirmed his alcohol level far exceeded the legal limit. This marked his 3rd DUI, and the court handed down a 55-day jail sentence and 4 years of probation. However, overcrowding at Los Angeles County Jail meant Bobby served just 9 hours, an almost laughably short stint given his history. It left many questioning whether justice truly applied to a fallen star. Though he vowed to quit drinking after his release, the damage to his reputation was irreversible. The once celebrated artist had become a cautionary tale, a living example of how fame and fortune can quickly give way to scandal and disgrace. Bobby Brown's story, once a tale of triumph, now serves as a somber reminder that even the brightest stars can lose their way. Lauryn Hill, from hip-hop royalty to prison bars. Lauryn Hill, a queen of hip-hop and an unrivaled musical force, captivated the world with her raw talent and unique voice. As a young star, she made waves with The Score in 1996 alongside the Fugees, then soared even higher with her solo masterpiece, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill in 1998. That album, a cultural phenomenon, earned her 5 Grammys and sold over 20 million copies, solidifying her place in music history. Yet, just when the world expected her to dominate the charts for decades, Lauryn vanished from the spotlight, entangled in financial turmoil that ultimately led to her downfall. Between 2005 and 2007, Lauryn earned more than $1.8 million from royalties and music deals. The problem? She didn't pay a single cent in taxes. The US government took notice, and in 2012, she found herself facing charges of tax evasion. When asked why she hadn't paid, Lauryn didn't deny her actions. Instead, she shocked the nation with her defense. She claimed that her decision to forego taxes wasn't driven by greed but by a need to protect herself and her family from what she described as a toxic and exploitative music industry. To her, leaving Hollywood was an act of survival, and the unpaid taxes were just collateral damage. But the authorities didn't buy it. In May 2013, Lauryn Hill was sentenced to 3 months in prison, followed by 3 months of house arrest and a year of probation. On July 8, 2013, she reported to the federal prison camp in Danbury, Connecticut, no longer a superstar but inmate #64 600-050. Stripped of all privileges, she lived among over 100 women in a shared dorm, waking at 6 a.m., performing mandatory labor, and eating standard prison meals. After 3 months, she was released on October 4, 2013, but remained under house arrest. Lauryn tried to reignite her musical career, but the spark was gone. Her post-prison track, Consumerism, failed to resonate, and her live performances became infamous for starting hours late, off-key singing, and chaotic energy. Though still hailed as a hip-hop legend, Lauryn Hill could never recapture her former glory. The 2013 prison sentence wasn't just a legal punishment. It marked the beginning of a heartbreaking descent for a once dominant talent who had taken the world by storm. James Brown. From soul legend to highway fugitive. James Brown, the undisputed godfather of soul, rose from humble beginnings to become an everlasting icon of American music. Performing since childhood, he stormed the music scene in the 1950s, delivering hits like I Got You, I Feel Good, and Papa's Got a Brand New Bag that cemented his legacy as a cultural titan. His electrifying performances, raspy voice, and uncontainable energy made him a global sensation. But on a fateful September day in 1988, his life took a shocking turn. On the afternoon of September 24th, James Brown walked into a drug rehab center in Augusta, Georgia, not as an honored guest, but as a man on the edge. In a sudden, terrifying moment, he pulled a gun, threatened those around him, and stormed out, leaving chaos in his wake. Jumping into his GMC pickup, Brown floored the gas, rocketing onto the highway at over 75 miles per hour. Georgia and South Carolina police quickly mobilized, 9 patrol cars and a helicopter in pursuit. But the godfather of soul wasn't stopping. He swerved wildly, crashed into a truck, and kept barreling forward. Spike strips shredded his tires, but he pushed on until bullets took out his wheels. Finally, boxed in and yanked from the truck, Brown was cuffed, his legendary career suddenly overshadowed by a reckless, desperate flight. The aftermath was just as shocking. Brown was sentenced to 6 years in prison on multiple charges: illegal weapons possession, resisting arrest, assault with a firearm, and public endangerment. Once a music icon, he was now just an inmate in South Carolina State Prison, wearing a striped uniform, doing 8-hour labor shifts in a silent cell, far from the stage lights that once defined his life. After 3 years of good behavior, Brown was paroled in February 1991. Remarkably, the soul legend bounced back. He hit the stage once more, igniting crowds with his relentless passion, released new music, appeared on TV, and even received recognition from President Bill Clinton in 1993. Yet, despite his triumphant return, the shadow of that day in 1988 never truly left him, a wild, chaotic episode that briefly turned a soul legend into a highway fugitive. Fat Joe. From hip-hop mogul to tax convict, a harsh lesson learned. Fat Joe, the Bronx-born rap titan, rose from the gritty streets to dominate the charts with hits like Lean Back and What's Love. By his early 20s, he was living the dream: fame, fortune, and the undeniable swagger of a hip-hop heavyweight. But success can be a slippery slope, and Fat Joe's untouchable attitude would soon come crashing down. In 2013, the illusion of invincibility shattered when the US government exposed the rap icon as a tax evader. Between 2007 and 2010, Fat Joe's career brought in millions from music and business ventures. Yet, instead of settling his tax bill, he simply ignored it, letting his debt skyrocket to over $3 million. The IRS wasn't about to let it slide. In 2012, federal agents began combing through his finances, unraveling a trail of unpaid taxes. By June 2013, a New Jersey court had sentenced him to 4 months in prison, a year of probation, and a hefty fine of more than $200,000. Gone were the Versace suits and flashy chains. Fat Joe now wore a prison jumpsuit, marked only by a cold, sterile ID number. Serving time at FPC Miami, a low-security federal facility, was a sobering reality check. While it wasn't the harshest of prisons, the confinement was a far cry from his lavish lifestyle. In the hip-hop world, no one saw it coming. Fat Joe, the larger-than-life mogul, brought down not by rival MCs but by the unforgiving hand of the IRS. When he walked out a free man on November 28, 2013, Fat Joe had changed. The fall from grace was a humbling experience, one that reshaped his outlook. Determined not to repeat past mistakes, he refocused on legitimate business, warning fellow artists on TV about the perils of tax evasion. Back on stage, his voice still carried the same raw power, but his message had evolved. Now, he often shares the lesson learned the hard way: no one, legend or average Joe, is above the law. Tupac Shakur, the prison deal that changed everything. From a teenage prodigy to a hip-hop icon, Tupac Shakur embodied the fierce spirit of his generation. His words cut through injustice, his presence commanded respect, and his music told stories of struggle and survival. Yet, in 1995, the system that he once railed against caught up with him. A court sentenced Tupac to 4.5 years in prison for first-degree sexual abuse, a moment that shattered the rap world. It all began in November 1993. A woman named Ayanna Jackson accused Tupac and 3 others of sexually assaulting her at a New York hotel. Tupac insisted it was consensual, but the jury believed her testimony. On February 7, 1995, the verdict came down guilty. Tupac, the revolutionary voice of hip-hop, was now a convicted felon, sent to Clinton Correctional Facility. Life behind bars was brutal. The walls seemed to close in, but Tupac refused to let them crush his spirit. Instead, he poured his pain and frustration into creativity, writing over 200 songs and filling countless journal pages. In letters to friends and family, Tupac confessed his heartbreak and isolation, but vowed to rise again. He was determined to reclaim his life, his voice, and his place in the world. After 11 months of confinement, desperation set in. He needed freedom, needed to make music, but the $1.4 million bail was an impossible dream, until Suge Knight appeared. The Death Row Records mogul dangled a lifeline. He would cover Tupac's bail if Tupac agreed to record 3 albums for the label. It was a deal steeped in risk, but one that promised freedom. On October 12, 1995, Tupac walked out of prison, not as a free man, but as a newly minted death row artist. Once out, Tupac was unstoppable. He unleashed his creative fury in the studio, recording over 100 tracks in just 8 months. His first post-prison project, All Eyes on Me, became the first double hip-hop album ever, selling over 5 million copies within a year. It was a triumph, but it came with a heavy price. Tupac was now embroiled in the violent East Coast-West Coast rivalry, pitted against Notorious B.I.G. and Bad Boy Records. Just 11 months after his release, tragedy struck. On September 7, 1996, Tupac was gunned down in Las Vegas, silencing a voice that had once roared with defiance. His decision to take the deal with Suge Knight may have won him freedom, but it also sealed his fate, plunging him into a conflict that would ultimately take his life. Tupac left behind a legacy of brilliance and controversy, forever etched in hip-hop history. Bow Wow. From teen rap icon to fallen star. Bow Wow, the child prodigy who once ruled hip-hop, saw his life go from the pinnacle of fame to the cold, hard reality of handcuffs and courtrooms. At just 13, he wowed the world with chart-topping hits, million-dollar deals, and a lifestyle fit for a young superstar. Stage lights, roaring crowds, and limitless adoration were his everyday. But as Bow Wow grew older, fame couldn't shield him from his own mistakes. By the time he hit 20, Bow Wow was no longer the adorable rap wonder kid. Determined to prove he was a grown-up player, he dove headfirst into a life of fast cars, wild parties, and late-night escapades. But that rebellious streak caught up with him on October 11, 2007. Atlanta police pulled over his Lamborghini Murcielago, and as the door swung open, a cloud of weed smoke betrayed him. A quick search revealed a stash in the glove compartment. The boy wonder of hip-hop found himself in cuffs, his golden image tainted. Though he made bail, the arrest marked the first major crack in his once unbreakable persona. If the 2007 bust dented his career, the 2012 incident all but shattered it. On October 25, 2012, Bow Wow was arrested again, this time for failing to pay over $90,000 in child support. The revelation stunned fans. How could a star who flaunted luxury cars and mansions be nearly broke? Behind the glitzy facade, the truth was brutal. His music deals had dried up, but his extravagant spending didn't stop. With no cash and mounting debts, he avoided his parental responsibilities until the court came knocking. Locked up, with no quick bailout this time, Bow Wow faced the bitter reality of a former superstar now labeled a penniless prisoner. After his release, Bow Wow tried to make a comeback, but the world had moved on. His new tracks failed to chart, and the internet turned his once iconic name into a meme, mocking his fall from grace. What had once been golden was now a faded memory. Social media didn't just forget him, it ridiculed him, turning his bravado into a running joke. From teenage millionaire to public mockery, Bow Wow's downfall is a harsh reminder that fame doesn't last forever. As the rap world evolved, Bow Wow struggled to find his place, ultimately becoming a cautionary tale of youthful success gone sour. Hollywood's glittering facade hides many tragic stories like Bow Wow's, where one mistake or reckless decision sends a star plummeting from the top. Which celebrity downfall shocked you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unbelievable tales from behind the scenes of fame and fortune.